2020 is not a chance to fight the system as most people may think. It's an opportunity to wake up, to know our true power. As when we do, our reflection of our reality naturally changes because a perpetrator can only exist if it can find a victim to control. And if there's no more victims in the world because we know how magnificent we are, there is no more controlled leadership. I'm going to tell you a story so you have focus on what you are capable of, as it is important to know where you are going and not be swayed by those who have their own agenda to control you. This is so you can recreate a new reality, one that empowers everybody. If I was born in the early 1900s and told people they could all live in a world where buying food, clothes, and anything they wanted from a pocket-sized device was possible, and also from that same device they could see and talk to someone on the other side of the world, I would most definitely be seen as crazy, right? But we all know now that I wouldn't have been crazy. Instead, from this viewpoint, I am a person to be looked up to, an advisor, a prophecy, a seer, or even a potential leader. So much of our reality has now been prophesied in many books and movies by authors that were only seen as using their imagination at the time. Or were they? So in saying that, and also letting you know that I have experienced some things considered outside the norm, I would like to take you all on a journey, a place that could be seen now as a magical world of unending possibilities, but I know to be a potential future for all. It was a normal day in the year of 2082. Walking along the main river that had not only run through the town but also through the treescape fields which lay between my home and the town centre. This day, I decided to walk home because I loved to smell the fresh air, to see the blooming daffodils and watch the birds flicker in and out of the rays of sunlight that dance like stars through the trees' canopies. The river was my favourite spot to sit and be completely in the moment. This used to be called meditation back in my grandparents' day, but now we have all learnt to master our minds, so it's normal to be completely present. Freedom was everywhere because we felt free within ourselves. There was no monkey mind that grasped our past problems and projected them into the future. We all finally mastered self-discipline, taking full responsibility for our thoughts, and we were much more aware of our connection to everything. It would have been the late 1900s and early 2000s when the first majority of people started to really understand that they were responsible for everything they had created and not their leaders. That they themselves had to master their minds in order to shift their victimized state of being controlled, which then allowed them new abilities to open up. This is because the stress of trying to survive left their bodies. This left a calmness, an understanding of their power, and in turn collapsed all dictator leadership because they could no longer control anyone anymore. As I watched the ripples of water flickering with light reflecting the dappled sun, I could see two fish swimming under the shadowy water's surface. I pondered over how far humanity had come, and all due to those few pioneers who took the first steps out of the war within their own minds. Getting up, I had tuned into a telepathic message from my mother back home. I knew she was tapping into me to check where I was and ask for me to return. Receiving and giving messages from devices was a thing of the past, when it was found out that those devices limited our natural ability to be telepathic. As the leaders back in my grandparents' day knew we would all become telepathic and wanted to divert our attention away from this natural ability so they could keep their control over my grandparents. Although many these days see the communication devices back in early 2000s as a stepping stone to show us what we really were capable of, because everything outside of us is just an inner reflection, and when we became more telepathic but still didn't have control over our minds, the mobile phone became our reality. There are only a few older generation who need them now, but they are likened to a hearing aid more than a communication device. Stretching my hands out to the two fish below, I motioned a graceful goodbye as they came to the surface to acknowledge my gratitude. As our minds cleared, we found a connection to our environment, and we all now know that love creates what we want, and fear creates what we don't want. So it is vitally important to put all of our attention and gratefulness into those things we love, not like in the old days, where our minds were manipulated by those in charge, constantly projecting adverts on billboards and what they called televisional boxes that sat in houses, filling everybody's minds with fear of war and poisons. I thought to myself it must have been so hard to have that constantly in one's mind and feel it was the only option. I then closed my eyes and with a still mind, imagined myself back at home. I could see my sisters and brothers playing in the holographic room. My mother was in the garden and my dad wasn't home yet. I knew in the old days they called this remote viewing, but just like all of the other abilities, it was the norm now to remote view before teleporting, not only so you could see where you were going, but also to let others know that you were on your way home. Standing there for a few more moments, I let go of where I was and recreated my bedroom around me. I used to feel a dizzy pull when I first teleported, but that was when I was younger. Nowadays I find it a breeze. There's only one thing in the way of this potential reality and the reality that we are hand-fed to by those in charge, and that is for us to take responsibility again, not only for our actions but also for our thoughts. We have an awareness moving through this planet now, and it is growing bigger and bigger every year. So imagine a life with amazing abilities, a life that can no longer be controlled. Imagine a world where we feel a connection to one another because you never know where that may take you. And isn't that worth the risk at the least to just sit down and imagine?